Everything Burns, the Psychology and the Philosophy of the Joker. Written by Anthony Nowicke. This goes back to all the way October 3rd, 2013. And to my audience and anybody watching this video, this is going to be a little tidbit, a little taste of future videos that I'm going to be doing. I've read an entire book with Batman and philosophy. I made some highlights of what I liked about the book, and I'll be making a little mini-series very similar to the Larkin Rose mini-series that I've made. So, let me get to this article. Of all the villains in the history of pop culture, the Joker is without doubt one of the most enduring and iconic, sharing ranks with the likes of such immortal fiends as Darth Vader, Hannibal Lecter, and though he has always been popular, it is Christopher Nolan and Heath Ledger's mesmerizing interpretation in 2008's The Dark Knight that has indelibly branded the character onto our consciousness forever. But why, despite being psychotic, nihilistic, murderer, is the character so popular, so loved even? Why do we see the freakish red scar of a smile on so many t-shirts, posters, and memes even to this day, and even to this day of 2025, although not as much as we used to see it? Why do people say that The Dark Knight is one of the few films that has you rooting for the bad guy? To fully understand the reasons why, we have to delve as deeply as Christopher Nolan, Ledger, and writer David S. Goyer themselves did while re-envisioning the character. We have to find and recognize that dark, hidden part of our psyche that the Joker's words and actions arouse, a part so deeply embedded that it took a renowned psychologist to uncover. We have to study the psychology and the philosophy of the Joker. Agent of Chaos. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other, as he says. People think too much of themselves sometimes, have you noticed? I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. I'm not calling people stupid. It's very understandable. We like to think of ourselves as noble, honest, and good. We like to think of ourselves as noble, honest, and good, especially in comparison to other people. We like to believe we'd never hurt someone or cause any damage of any kind. Psychologists tell us of what's called illusory superiority, the cognitive bias in us that causes a person to think far too highly of their positive qualities and far too little of their negative ones. In their heads, they're much better people than, let's be honest, they really are. Again, this doesn't make us bad or wrong. It's just something our minds need to do in order to get through the day. And a note on myself, you know what that makes me think of? You ever see the movie Big Chill? Horrible movie, but Jeff Goldblum had some really good quotes in it. He says, "We rationalize more than we have sex in life, especially in today's times. Men are barely having sex, women, that's a whole other story. You're having a good time. But men, we rationalize more than we fuck." Right? Every day we're rationalizing and rationalizing. So, without that rationalizing, and we would probably kill ourselves or go crazy because we have to rationalize each thing that we do. And if we always come to the conclusion that it's negative or bad, it's not going to end too well for us. During the English Civil War of the 1600s, a guy named Thomas Hobbes was a bit ahead of the curve in terms of this illusory superiority thing. Even if he never exactly recognized it as such, he didn't agree with most people's idea that they're inherently moral and righteous. Instead, he theorized that without enforced rules, humanity would revert right back to a brutish and immoral nightmare of a society. One chaotic, hellish, and burning. One in which you'd blow up a ferry full of innocents to stay alive. back to me. Now, reading all the anarchist kind of stuff that I've been reading, the real freedom things, I disagree with Thomas Hobbes. I actually think you go back to the Civil War, the whole reason all that chaos began in the first place was because of the interjection of government. So again, government causes all the chaos and destruction in our lives for centuries. Today, Hobbes is recognized mostly for his theories in political philosophy, whose ideas laid virtually the entire foundation of Western civilization. His most famous work was a horrifically dense tome called Leviathan. It contains perhaps his most famous quote of all, what amounts to his justification for the existence of government. So, I'm presenting to you an anti-idea, an idea that goes against what I believe in. This is me again. So, I lean towards the Larkin Rose, the anarchy ideas, but here's the ideas of Thomas Hobbes, which is for government, and here's his reasons why. And it's for you to decide. Quote, this is Hobbes. No society, and which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death, and the life of man solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Hobbes is saying that without the structured control of government, what the Joker calls the schemers, and in my opinion the Joker is absolutely correct about the schemers, I think he's right, people become animals without the schemers, according to Thomas Hobbes. Killers, thieves. In the 17th century, this was especially influential, and was the major reason Hobbes and guys like him caught on government, law, and order were absolutely necessary to them. Basically, much of your life is what is now... Basically, much of your life is what it is now because Thomas Hobbes wrote some things down. That's no exaggeration, according to this author. Now, if this was Ethics 102, Hobbes and the Joker would be sitting right next to one another, passing notes and giggling. They agree with one another on one thing. When the chips are down, civilized people eat each other. Were we in Political Science 102, however, the Joker and Hobbes would be the guys always getting into fights with one another. If Hobbes could somehow possess Bruce Wayne's technology, The Dark Knight would be more or less the same film, except that we'd have a white-bearded Batman instead. Hobbes supported government for fear of immoral chaos. The Joker, on the other hand, because he's a downright anarchist psychopath, that's the words of the author, not me, or psychopathic anarchist, would love nothing more than to see this happen. It's why he puts bombs on ferries. It's why he murders government officials. It's why he tries to corrupt the one person whose symbol that we don't have to be afraid of people like him, though we really do. The Joker wants to push a whole city into the wicked gravity of madness and anarchy. Again, this is me. I disagree with using the term anarchy in this sense. But make no mistake, this is the writing, back to the article. There is a method behind his madness. It annoys me that the Joker only gets credit for being an agent of chaos, or a raving psychotic inflicting random cruelty. Corrupting the city, that great symbol of civilization, by bringing it down to a primal state, devoid of any meaning or rules, is what the Joker is after. But his non-plan is the work of a mastermind. It is anything but chaotic or meaningless. It is logical, clear, and has a definitive purpose, no matter what Alfred may say. It just so happens to employ an element of randomness. And if you remember in the movie The Dark Knight, this is me now, Alfred was telling Bruce about that one time they had to go after a war criminal. And some people just like to see the world burn. There's no logic behind it. That was Alfred's description of what the Joker is all about. It just so happens to employ an element of randomness. The end result is that the Joker becomes the personification of a philosophical argument taken to its extreme, supporting his nihilistic thesis with the chaos that results from his actions. Though eventually defeated by Batman, it appears the Joker does indeed prove his point. Harvey Dent was Gotham City's White Knight, the walking epitome of justice, order, and nobility. But the Joker turns him into the Two-Face, who then goes on to murder 5 people. 2 of them cops, using a chaotic, absurdly meaningless method of flipping a coin to determine their fates. This alone symbolizes the Joker's philosophy and mission to disrupt civilized society's sense of illusory superiority, and to humble it by bringing it back down to its savage roots. I had a vision. Do I really look like a guy with a plan? Now let's go in even deeper. To really understand the Dark Knight, to really understand the Dark Knight's version of the Joker, it is necessary to examine one of his creators, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan directed Following and Memento. There was that Inception movie too. He started out indie, and his films well thought out explorations of existentialism, the stuff of Nietzsche, Sartre, and Camus. Existentialism, as I'll explain more in a minute, asserts the total absence of rules, morals, and codes, except the ones we make up in our heads to feel better about an existence with no purpose whatsoever. Period. A terrifying idea for most people. And as I said before, this is Geo again, G-Man. Jeff Goldblum, we rationalize more than we fuck. Indeed, Jeff, you were absolutely right. Back to the article. He may be more Hollywood these days, but he still slips in the heavy stuff here and there, Christopher Nolan. He certainly does so with the Joker, his most famous creation yet. He saw in the character an opportunity to play with significant existential material. A risky angle on a classic villain that paid off. At the very least, it demonstrates how a society's core philosophies manage to bubble up in all its various forms of pop culture. Philosophy describes ways of looking at the world. Apparently, Nolan dug existentialism at the time, and it makes sense that his beliefs and values would inform the choices he made as a director, if even unconsciously. Next section. A funny world we live in. I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger. There's more to this existentialism stuff. Insofar as it concerns the Joker. It's no wonder the quote above is really the first substantial thing you hear the Joker say in The Dark Knight. You could say it's his thesis and that the rest of the film becomes his way of supporting it, with some rather extreme evidence. Indeed, just what does the Joker believe in? What's interesting is where the quote comes from. It's a one-letter twist on a phrase you've undoubtedly heard before. I don't even need to repeat it. The guy responsible for that original version was named Friedrich Nietzsche. Of course, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's what they're referring to. Nietzsche and his boys, such as Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, and novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky, put forth a lot of bizarre ideas at the end of the last century. Those ideas opposed damn near everything that came before them and scared some people half to death, and still scare people now, in my opinion. Back to the article. What had them so freaked out was the apparent hopelessness of existentialism. While hopeless may be too strong a word for it, it does appear depressing. Don't plan a date after your existentialism class. You wouldn't be any fun at all. And here's the real kicker. Of everything I've been rambling about. Existentialism has caught up. You notice it lately, indirectly, in such trends such as secularism, skepticism, and scientific literacy. Those blogs are everywhere. They embrace the idea of a universe without any preordained values as assigned by God, say. They embrace the opportunity to chase their own values of science and exploration. Make no question that most people do choose what we call good values, but a lot of them do so with an understanding that they chose this or that for themselves, not because anyone or anything told them to. Although this, for me, is a debatable question when you live in this. This is me, G-Man here. G-Man is interjecting commentary. We are not reading the article at this moment. G-Man says, in today's times with technology and social media at the way it is, 12 years after this written article, it is debatable now that people are actually doing things mostly on free will. There is the possibility of psychological nudging through propaganda, psychological nudging through advertising, not just through watching TV or watching YouTube advertisements, but all of the little ads that show up when you're looking through websites and everything. And of course, the media companies have access to your text messages, your phone calls, your habits, your taste. So now, today, the idea of free will is even more in question. Commentary by G-Man ended. Back to article. People these days, whether they know it or not, base a lot of their opinions and beliefs on existential beliefs. People these days, whether they know it or not, base a lot of their opinions and beliefs on existential ideas, or at least in response to them. That's what their unconscious minds grew up with, whether they realize it or not. They almost can't help it, as a lot of the movies they're given to watch these days rely on existentialism as well. If you don't believe me, watch Fight Club, Matrix, Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, Taxi Driver, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Groundhog Day, Apocalypse Now, and the writer even puts Toy Story in here. Okay, that's interesting. You hear a lot of people these days questioning rules. Rebelliousness and skepticism is a rule of cool for some, ironically enough. Haughty critics in 2043 will write of the prevalence of existential themes throughout the films of the late 20th and 21st century. The Joker is so popular today because he expresses existential values and ideals in such an entertaining way. And existential just happens to be in right now. So it's no surprise that he caught on the way he did. That's how pop culture works. A lot of people deep down believe in what we say. A lot of people deep down believe in what he says. At least partly. A part of them wishes they could agree with him to the point of even rooting for him. Shotgun blast in the face and all. Next section. Why so serious? The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. Now that we've reviewed what existentialism is, here are just a couple of specific examples of existential principles and how The Dark Knight demonstrates them, particularly through the Joker. 1. The will to power. Nietzsche wrote a lot about concepts called the Übermensch, the will to power. In existentialism, there are no rules. So how is a person to live? If the absurd is true, then that's pretty damn scary. We might not know what to do with our lives anymore, eh, Bats? The Übermensch is an individual who overcomes that fear, that dread, and is able to define his own values, meaning, and purpose. He decides the course of his own life, in no way influenced by anything outside of himself. Batman, of course, I just need a... Batman, of course, is willing power as well, but while he sometimes struggles with this, the Joker has dived right in. He has embraced his will to power in the world, what an Ubermensch does, and tried to assert power and change in the world around him. The Joker puts Batman through challenges that force him to question what he believes in, to teeter on breaking the one rule that he clings to, and that is one reason people repeatedly watch this movie so much. We are held in suspense over what decision Bruce Wayne will make. Kill and abandon the rules that hold his soul together, or not? Batman does, in fact, achieve Ubermensch status himself when he turns out to be truly incorruptible. He stands by the values and codes he honors in himself as a knight. This is why, on some level, this film has remained and will remain popular for a very long time. Sticking to our values no matter what is something we'd like to believe in, whether it's Batman's idealism or the Joker's nihilism. The Dark Knight lets us experience both sides vicariously. The absurd. The Joker is all about the absurd. Not surprising for a clown when you think about it. Absurdism rejects the notion that there is any value or meaning or purpose in the universe at all. The Joker obviously agrees with this, and he says it flat out several times. That's scary to think, though, isn't it? That there's literally no purpose for us being here. Most existentialists actually enjoy this to some degree. For them, it is the chance to define our own values, and we can choose to be whatever kind of a species that we want to be. What's scary about the Joker, though, and what makes him such a horrifying and effective villain, is that not only does he fully embrace absurdity, he just so happens to enjoy chaos, violence, and mayhem. He's a guy of simple taste, enjoying dynamite, gunpowder, and gasoline. Those are the things he values. Those are the things he wills. Next section. A guy like me. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve. We have seen the philosophical mold in which the pre-existing character of the Joker was recast by Nolan and company. Next, I'll explain precisely why we are so captivated by him and why. Carl Jung was an early 20th century psychologist and psychotherapist, highly influenced by Sigmund Freud. While controversy surrounds his theories today, one idea of his has stuck around that most people regard as true. We all break bad once in a while. Jung explained this phenomenon with a concept called the shadow. The shadow is the dark part of a person's psyche. They refuse to acknowledge the shadow. It's the part of you that wishes you could beat up your boss and then steal his wallet, maybe even worse. It's the part of you that wishes you could rob a bank in a clown mask, or hurl down a public street in a semi firing off rocket launchers. It's the part of you that wants to abandon rules like the Joker did. According to Jung, a person must recognize those negative impulses to maintain mental health. We must acknowledge the darkness within us, but not identify it. When you don't acknowledge the shadow, what happens is that it breaks free, takes on a life of its own, and comes back to terrorize you and shatter your illusory superiority. Here's a quote by Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. One way we do this is through movies, comic books, games. Famous beloved villains jibe with our shadows, our primal states, and do so in an entertaining fashion. that has no undesirable consequences in real life, so long as you keep it in the realm of fiction. Admit it, you killed the hooker and then stole your money back in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. We've all murdered a chicken in Hyrule. Zelda, he's talking about here. The Joker is simply an outlet for the shadow, and such a compelling one that millions have been captivated by him and have vicariously lived out the depravities of their psycho. Wait. The Joker is simply an outlet of the shadow, and such a compelling one that millions have been captivated by him and have vicariously lived out the depravities of their psyche's shadow. It is precisely because the Joker bombs and murders and corrupts that so many viewers get a kick out of watching him. He acts in ways that we sometimes wish we could. Deep down, we get a vicarious rush out of seeing him indulge in such behavior without anyone really getting hurt. Next section. Now we're talking. It's not about money. It's about sending a message. So there you have it. I've given you a brief tour of the philosophical ideas and influences that went into the creation of the Joker. Ideas that the Joker himself believes in wholeheartedly and methodically goes about trying to bring into reality. We've also seen the psychological reason why a character like this can command such a widespread appeal, and why. Despite his evil-doing nature, there is a part of us that hopelessly is in love with him. The version of the Joker that appears in The Dark Knight has become such a pop culture icon in part because he represents a philosophical question that cuts to the very heart of who and what we are. Are we moral animals? Or are we just animals? The idealist in us wants to side with Batman and believe that humanity, when put to the test, will pass with flying colors. The cynic in us wants to say, fuck people, and side with the Joker as he lets hell break loose. This is why the Joker is as essential to Batman as the Batman himself. The two are locked in a perpetual yin and yang embrace, representing numerous human dichotomies: order and chaos, meaning and absurdity, the light and the shadow. And just as Jung declared that acknowledging the shadow was essential for a truly balanced psyche, we love the Joker just for reminding us of our baser natures, for humbling our loftier fantasies with a dose of brutal reality, and for puncturing our sense of illusory superiority when it gets out of hand. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.